Random House Audio presents W is for Wasted by Sue Grafton. This is Judy, Kaye. Two dead men changed the course of my life that fall. One of them I knew, and the other I'd never laid eyes on until I saw him in the morgue. The first was Pete Walensky, an unscrupulous private detective I'd met years before through Birdshine Investigations, where I'd served my apprenticeship. Walensky was gunned down the night of August 25th on a dark stretch of pavement just off the parking lot at the Santa Teresa bird refuge. The site was right across the street from the Caliente Cafe, a popular hangout for off-duty cops. His body might not have been discovered until daylight if it hadn't been for an inebriated bar patron who stepped into the shadows to take a leak. I heard about Pete's death on the morning news while I was eating my Cheerios. His death was a surprise, but I can't say it was a shock. He'd often complained of sleeping poorly and had taken to wandering the streets at all hours. According to the reporter, his wallet had been stolen along with his watch, a knockoff Rolex with a faux platinum band. He was a man with a propensity for risk, and it was only a matter of time before Lady Luck caught up with him and pushed him off the cliff. The story about the second dead man is more complex and takes longer to articulate, especially since the facts emerged slowly over a matter of weeks. The coroner's office called me on October 7th, 1988, a Friday afternoon, asking if I could ID a John Doe who had my name and phone number on a slip of paper in his pocket. How could I resist? My name is Kinsey Millhone. I'm a private investigator, female, age 38. I rent office space in a 2-room bungalow with a kitchenette and a bathroom on a narrow side street in the heart of Santa Teresa, population 85,810, minus the 2 dead guys. Since I'm the sole proprietor and lone employee, I operate on a modest scale, supporting myself by doing missing persons searches, background checks, witness location, and the occasional service of process. From time to time, I'm hired to establish paper trails in legal, financial, or property disputes. When I reached the coroner's office, I was ushered into a bay with a curtain discreetly pulled around the ceiling track. The dead man was stretched out on a gurney with a sheet pulled up to his chin, so there was nothing of an intimate nature in evidence. He was not someone I recognized. His skin tones were gray, underlined with a pale gold that suggested liver issues of a profound and possibly fatal nature. His features had been softened and flattened in death, angles worn as smooth as stone over which water has poured for thousands of years. The human spirit does more than animate the face. It lends character and definition. Here, there was none. The decedent, to use the official term, was white and overweight in the manner of those who forego their 9 servings of fresh fruits and vegetables per day. Judging by the bulbous nose and broken veins across his weather-darkened face, he'd enjoyed alcohol in sufficient quantities to pickle the average adult. His body had been discovered that morning in a sleeping bag on the beach, where he'd hollowed out a place for himself in the sand. His campsite was just below a bank of ice plant that flourished between the bike path and the beach itself, a spot not immediately visible to passers-by. During the day, the area is popular with the homeless. At night, the fortunate among them secure bed space at one of the local shelters. The unlucky ones are left to flop where they can. Preliminary examination suggested the man had been dead for close to 18 hours by the time the coroner's investigator got in touch with me. Aaron Blumberg was a man in his 60s with a softly receding hairline. The top of his head was covered with gray fluff, like the first feathering out of a baby bird. We stood in silence for a moment, and then he checked my reaction. "You know him?" "I don't. I take it he was homeless." Aaron shrugged. "That's my guess." "Who called it in?" He took off his glasses and polished one lens with the end of his tie. "Fellow named Cross. 7 o'clock this morning, he was out on the beach with a metal detector sweeping for coins. He had his eye on the sleeping bag, thinking it had been dumped. Something about it bothered him, so he went out to the street and flagged down the first black and white that came by. Was anyone else around? The usual posse of bums. But by the time the paramedics arrived, they'd all drifted away. Any signs of foul play? Nothing obvious. Dr. Palchek's on her way out. What do you think he died of? He looks jaundiced. Not to be flip about it, but what do any of these guys die of? It's a hard life. We have one just like this every couple of months. Guy goes to sleep and he never wakes up. Could be hepatitis C, anemia, heart attack, alcohol poisoning. If we can ID the guy, I'll canvass the local clinics in hopes he's seen a doc sometime in the last 20 days. No ID at all? Aaron shook his head. Note with your name and phone number, and that was it. I inked his fingers and faxed the 10-print card to the DOJ in Sacramento. Weekend's coming up, and those requests are going to sit there until somebody gets around to them. Might be the middle of next week. Meanwhile, what? I'll check his description against missing persons reports and see if there's a match. Anything else? Moles? Tattoos? He lifted the sheet to expose the man's left leg, which was shorter than his right. The kneecap was misshapen, raised in a thick knot like a burl. The flesh along the fibula was laced with red ropes of scar tissue. At some point in the past, he'd suffered a devastating injury. What happens if you never find out who he is? We'll hold him for a time, and then we'll bury him. What about his effects? Clothes on his back, sleeping bag, and that's it. If he had anything else, it's gone now. Ripped off? That's possible. In my experience, the beach bums are protective of one another, which is not to say they might not confiscate the stuff he had no further use for. What about the note he carried? Can I see it? He reached for the clipboard at the bottom of the gurney and freed the clear plastic evidence bag in which the slip had been placed. The note was written in ballpoint pen, the letters uniform and clean. Millhone Investigations, with the address and phone. That's my office, I remarked. He must have looked me up in the yellow pages. My home number's unlisted. Wonder what a homeless guy wanted with a PI. I guess they've got problems just like everyone else. At any rate, I'm sorry for the wasted trip, but I thought it was worth a shot. Absolutely, I said. Do you mind if I ask around? Somebody must know who he was. If the guy needed help, he might have confided in his cronies. Do anything you want as long as you keep us in the loop. Maybe you'll find out who he is before we do. Wouldn't that be nice? Pulling out of the parking lot, I thought about the oddities of life, that something as insignificant as a slip of paper could have a ripple effect. For reasons unknown, the dead man had made a note of my name and phone number, and because of that, my path had touched his. While it was too late for conversation, I wasn't quite prepared to shrug and move on. On my way back into town, I stopped at the car wash. For years, I owned VW Bugs, which were cheap to run and possessed a certain quirky charm. My current vehicle is a 1970 Ford Mustang, a two-door coupe with manual transmission, a front spoiler, and wide-track tires. This car had served me well, but the color was an eye-popping grabber blue, much too conspicuous for someone in my line of work. At the car wash for $9.99, the deluxe package includes a thorough interior vacuuming, a foam wash, a rinse, a hot wax, and a blow-dry with 60-horsepower fans. Ticket in hand, I watched the attendant ease the Mustang into a line of cars awaiting the conveyor track, which would ferry it from view. I went inside the station and paid the cashier. I scarcely noticed the guy standing at the observation window next to me until he spoke. "That your Mustang?" "Yep," I said, and looked over at him. I placed him in his early 40s, dark hair, good jawline, slender frame. "Are you a fan?" I asked. "Oh, God, yes. My older brother had a 429 when he was in high school. Man, you floored that thing and it...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?